Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So today I decided to hire a motorcycle and ride around some Portuguese roads. And as many of you know, I love a classically styled motorcycle on this channel. Yep, we do dabble in adventure bikes from time to time, but really the thing I get out of bed for, the thing I'm up at night glued to my phone looking at websites and reviews, is all about modern retro bikes. I just can't get enough of them. But there was a glaring omission in the bikes that I'd ridden when it comes to modern retros, and that happens to be the Triumph Bonneville. It's probably in everyone's shortlist when you're looking at a modern retro. It's kind of the definitive bike. Triumph is kind of like the darling of the retro scene. I know that does actually attract some kind of malaise or disdain from certain groups. And if you do have a little bit of a towards Triumph, a little bit of a kind of, you know, take it or leave it, then just write in the comments why. I'd be quite interested to know, because a few people have mentioned before that Triumph isn't their thing or they're not a fan of Triumph. But I'd never really experienced the Triumph Bonneville, and I just thought it was time to do it. There's a few of my friends on the platform. Obviously I say friends, but you know, they kind of feel like friends because we chat and stuff. Two Wheel Willie, Bankrupt Pensioner as well, both recently got T120s. And then you've got Freddie with his 865 Bonneville. It's kind of an iconic YouTube bike, and I'd never ridden one. So I've hired a Speed Twin 900 for the day, and I hired a bike because, one, I would do it anyway. It costs 98 euros, but it's kind of worth the money, because taking a bike out on a test ride like I did with the Speed 400, you only get 45 minutes. So it's literally blast out, quickly set up the camera, make something up, spew something out to YouTube, and then rush the bike back, and hopefully you don't get told off because you're too late. I thought, just hire a bike, you got all day, it's going to be nice weather. It's actually a little bit cloudy today, but usually it's pardon me, usually it's nice weather. And this was the best take so far as well. I've started sneezing. Take the bike out all day and just get a good feel for it. And the question I really want to ask is, what's this bike got at 9,400 or 9,200 for the base paint that sets it above the Royal Enfield Interceptor or Super Meteor, whichever one you fancy, or the Bear, or the whatever, the new ones, and the BSA Goldstar at 6 grand, and then this bike's up at 9. And really, does it live up to the hype? And obviously this is my channel, I've hired this bike. I'm going to do my usual thing and just say whatever I think. It's just going to be truth bombs dropping everywhere. And so that's the job for today, really. Just to have a little feel, what do we think about this motorcycle? And if you're considering one of the Royal Enfield BSA kind of level bikes, or you're going to jump up to Triumph, what's that going to get you? And we're just going to go for it. Let's hop on. Right, so we're off out on the Triumph Speed Twin 900, and instantly you feel a little bit of a difference from the BSA single cylinder. Huge difference between the single and the twin. The thing that most immediately strikes me as well is how compact the Speed Twin is. Whereas the BSA, it's a bit of a reach to the bars, and you've got loads of space for your legs. On the Speed Twin, even though this is a 216 kilo bike, it feels very... Oh look, it's raining. That's a bad sign, isn't it? Even though it's a 216 kilo bike, it feels very compact. You know, like you're kind of crunched up a little bit, which is a bit of a difference from the bikes that are like proper classics, I say proper classics, but modern retros like the BSA Goldstar and the Royal Enfield Interceptor, a little bit of a difference. I mean, maybe that's something to do with the Speed Twin is slightly more sporty than the T100 and the T120. But yeah, it does feel a little bit more cramped, I want to say. That might not be the correct word. Now, the Bonneville Speed Twin, the Speed Twin actually has a low seat. I think it's 765, something like that. But it's also aided by the fact that the seat's actually quite narrow in the middle. And that means that if you are a shorter rider, then this bike's actually better for you than the Speed 400, because that's actually got taller seat height, but also a wider seat. So the Bonneville's kind of like a bike that anyone can get on and ride, and that's a big plus point for it. However, because the seat's a little bit narrower, it's actually got less padding in it. So the seat actually tapers towards the tank, gets narrower and less padded. So I've actually had a sore bum after about 15 minutes of riding this bike, but then that could be me just being soft. And I say sore, it's not awful, it's just not as plush as the BSA's seat. So that's just something to note. Looking up front at the rider's view, everything is a little bit more refined in quality, isn't it? Like the plastics on here are nicer than the BSA's. They're probably not a lot nicer than the new Interceptor switchgear, which is alloy. I mean, I would say it's probably close between those two. Maybe even the Royal Enfield has it. I mean, Triumph is nice though, isn't it? I mean, it is a premium brand. You've got adjustable levers. This looks quite neat here. The mirrors are just decent. Like, everything here is just well made and machined. Even the plastic bits are quite tidy, aren't they? It makes the BSA look a little bit cheap, to be honest. Let's just call a spade a spade. All this stuff up here does throw shade on the BSA stuff. Probably not as much on Royal Enfield's 650 offerings, but certainly on BSA. The mirrors are pretty cool. I mean, I can see everything out of them. They just got a nice look and feel to them. Up here, it's very well made. Everything looks nice. However, it's a little bit too modern for me. I prefer the T120 with its dual instrument cluster. Very, very retro looking. This kind of hybrid thing, like with the kind of modern look, I don't really go for myself. But man, it's very clear, isn't it? Everything works as it should. If you press this button, you can cycle through loads of useful stuff, like range, mileage, fuel economy. I quite like this kilometers to empty thing as well. There's your RPM there in the middle as well. Whoa! I mean, that's it, isn't it? This is what these bikes offer. Hello? I mean, this is cool up here. Look at this. It's pretty stunning. I do forget that it's a road for other road users because no one's up here. So you just end up having so much fun, you kind of forget to look out for other riders and drivers. Oh man, this is fun. So come on then, let's get to it. Let's get to the engine. Obviously it's a twin, so it's got a different feel to it, but it does kind of roar. I think we're on standard pipes here, and it's got like a really, like a V8 it almost feels like, whereas the BSA is kind of like an inline 6, if we could compare to cars. Yeah, and also the torque. Let's just pilot through these bends and I'll actually have some fun and then continue talking. Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, two-wheeled Willie always says the torque is addictive. I'm not even on the 1200, I'm on the 900. Whoa! And you fly off with the torque. What's really weird is, as well, I don't know whether it's a combination of the torque output of the engine but also the gearing. I can ride all around Portugal in gears 2 and 3. I don't really need, it must be long geared. There's only 5 gears, which is a little bit unusual considering that most bikes these days, new bikes, have 6 speed. But I mean, look at it going up this hill now, that's second. It'll just fly up here. Ooh. Yeah, really powerful and torquey engine. You wouldn't need any more than this for the road, I'll tell you that for nothing. I mean, I know people do have the 1200 bike, but the 900 is fine. I think we've got 65 horsepower, 80 newton meters of torque. Look at this. Just roars along. So, I mean, that's the appeal, isn't it? I mean, we talked in the intro. Sun's come out. We talked in the intro about why this bike is better than Royal Enfield and BSA. Let's be honest, the engine is undoubtedly part of that. It's a pretty convincing argument. Just going to slow down a little bit. And so let's compare torque figures. 80 for this bike, Royal Enfield Interceptor 52, BSA 55. So even against the BSA, you're at a whole 25 newton meters. That's a big deal. Obviously you pay 50% extra on the purchase price, but if kind of that torque and wafting along is important to you, then this bike does deliver that. 5-speed though, a bit weird, kind of expect it to be 6. Here we go, look at down here. The gearbox is super, I say notchy, but it's super kind of boom, straight in, like a bolt, they say like a bolt action on a rifle, don't they? It just slots into place. Very kind of mechanical feeling. Feels quality. Quite a lot of engine braking as well. I'm actually slowing down going down this hill in a second. Whoa! 5,000. That's crazy, man. This bike, Willie, I know what you mean now. The torque is addictive. I'm going to be a little bit sad going back to the BSA. It's going to feel a little bit underpowered, isn't it? And that rumble as well, I'm going to call it the V8 rumble. That's what we're going to call it, 'cause it does feel a little bit like that. It's crazy. Fair play. This was Triumph's entry-level bike until the Speed 400 came out. This was like the beginner version, which is madness. People around here are so friendly. Here's a temptation, just to roar across this bridge. Go on then. You thought I wasn't going to do it then, didn't you? Man's on good tyres now. Whoa! Go on! Woo! Man, you can build speed so easily on this bike. Yeah, talking of the tyres, it's nice to have motorcycle tyres that actually seem suitable for a motorcycle on your bike. I mean, my tyres, the only bike they could probably be fitted to for safe usage would be a bike made by Lego Technic, because getting on these tyres, it's just so different. They actually feel like they're made of rubber, not black plastic. I think these are Michelin Road Pilot Sport, something like that, but they're just so grippy. The bike does seem to want to just flow into bends as well. It's got an 18-inch wheel, same as the BSA at the front, 17 on the rear. I think it's a little bit more nimble than the BSA. BSA a little bit more planted, a bit more stable at higher speeds. This is a little bit more flickable. let's test that out now. Look, I'm in fourth. That's showing you the torque. I'm in fourth, totally wrong gear, and I can just build the speed up and just flow around the bends. You couldn't do that on the BSA. You definitely feel it. I've been riding the Bonneville for a while now, and the takeaways really are riding position is a little bit different. If you jump on the bike, you'll notice that my knees are in a little bit of a bent position, over a 90-degree bend in the knee, and I'm very close to the bars. I'm almost leant over a little bit, which is a little bit of a difference to the BSA, but also the T120. The seat has this tapered effect going down towards the tank. I think there's a little bit less padding in that area, which makes it a little bit less comfortable. I don't think I could ride 200 miles a day for several days on this bike. I think probably a T120 with the big flat seats, or the Goldstar seats, particularly comfortable. That would be a little bit of a better seat. If we talk about the suspension, of course non-adjustable at the front. The sides here, we've probably got, yeah, preload adjuster on the coil spring there. It is more compliant out of the box than the Goldstar. Goldstar, as I said before, kind of crashes and bangs over stuff. This actually isn't as good as the Speed 400 suspension for me. That's a little bit more softly sprung. This is quite hard, but it has better damping than the BSA. You can hit a speed bump faster on this bike and not have the whole thing shaking and jarring your shoulders, which happens on the BSA. So comfort is overall pretty good. This bit in front of you here, I think is overall quite a quality item. It's not probably as nice as I would expect from Triumph. I thought this would blow you away. I mean, this handlebar mount is nice with the Triumph logo etched into it. Mirrors are nice, but the switchgear isn't quite as kind of pitch perfect as I thought it would be, if that makes sense. Let's get on to the overall quality of the bike though, and this is where you spent your money. The engine is really nice with the clean machining on the fins there. Obviously you've got this triangular engine casing, which is kind of a Triumph like go-to design feature now, isn't it? And then, yeah, look at this brushed alloy for the levers. The foot pegs are really nice. The tank is particularly nice. I think the filler cap is a better design than the BSA. It all just comes together nicely. This bike actually, when we talk about design, has pretty much everything from SW Motec and R&G. And something to take away for me as well is that all of the SW Motec kit that's on here anyway, the panniers and the frames and the engine bars and that thing, they're all really well designed. So SW Motec, expensive, but pretty decent. The R&G protection here as well, and the exhaust and the engine casing, they're pretty nice actually. I pay money for that. I do like R&G. Something that lets it down a little bit in the design is the indicators. These are like Triumph parts bin indicators from 1990s. They're pretty horrible, to be honest. If I was to have this bike, I would upgrade the indicators. But overall, proportionally, it's just a really nice bike. I don't know what size the fuel tank is, but it does proportionally suits the look of the bike there. Being a bigger engine, the engine is more of a feature of the bike, which I noticed. And the engine does give out a lot of heat, which is fine on a kind of cloudy day like today. But in the baking sun, you feel the engine actually warm in your legs. You got two exhausts here, which is a bit of a different look from the BSA. Very similar to the Interceptor, upswept at the sides there. Overall, its looks and its comfort are pretty good. I mean, if you buy this bike, you're not going to be disappointed. As I talked about when riding it, you've got the 18-inch at the front, which is kind of again a go-to rim size for a classic style. You've got a short front mudguard, which I don't know if this will be in shot if I move over here. Let me move this side. Which is going to be pretty crappy if you want to keep crap from flying up off the radiator. So maybe a mudguard extender or something. They've done that for style. Is rubbish. BSA mudguard way better. On this bike you got the spoked alloy rims, which I probably think is a better, more usable choice because you can have the tubeless tyres. and that's going to be really nice. Chain drive, but again 5-speed, which is a bit weird. Right, so we've done all the picturesque YouTubey mountain passes and up in the hills. We're now going to use the bike in a bit of more of a day-to-day capacity. So I'm going to pop over to Albufeira, just try the bike in traffic and that kind of thing, see how it is really. I will say that I've done 150 kilometers on it so far, and the fuel lights come on. Now the BSA would probably come on after about 140 miles. So there you're seeing the impact of having a bigger engine. We're drinking fuel a little bit more voraciously than the 650cc of the BSA. Right, we're now getting to Albufeira proper. These trees are very pretty, aren't they? It's not all as grim as I made out in my earlier videos, so sorry Albufeira. Those purple trees are pretty impressive. So anyway, we're meant to be doing something useful. What we want to do is assess the bike, how it is in traffic. Can we just nip out? Oh, I tell you what we'll do a little bit of filtering, just to give an idea of the bike, how nimble it is. And the engine being very torquey, actually very forgiving. You can do anything in any gear. There we go. That was a bit weird then. I was stuck between two scooters. I kind of needed to not be stuck, and obviously the torque of the Speed Twin was very useful in that situation. Yeah, so as I was saying, very easy to just flow through traffic because you can just ride the wave of torque. Doesn't matter if you're in second, doesn't matter if you're in third even. It's really, really nice. It's nimble as well. The weight's nice and low. You can see a lot out of the mirrors, very, very clear because you're not high in the revs, so there's not vibration. And when you pull up to a stop in traffic, of course, because we got this low seat height and narrow seat that I was complaining a little bit about earlier, it's nice because you get your feet flat. Totally stable platform. Let's just loop round at the roundabout up here. The only thing to be aware of is this engine puts out significant heat. Oh, just tramlined a little bit on that white road marking. Okay, round we go, indicate. Just hear the engine roar as you pull off from a roundabout. It just, you know, just pulls you away from any danger. So I'm just going to pop into BP to fill out indicators. See that? Very nice and clear, easy for me to see, which in traffic is handy because you don't want to leave something on. People get the wrong idea of where you're going. One thing I will say, it's not all that easy to get into neutral. Go on. Nope, see? A second. There you go, neutral, found it. Right guys, I'm going to fill up, I'll catch you on the other side. Right, well I've done about 200 kilometers on the Triumph now. I'll probably do another 50 or 70 before I take the bike back. So it's long enough to get kind of an understanding of what the bike's about. Obviously, after I got the initial silliness out of my system, the point and squirt blasting all over the roads, I've come to appreciate the torque. As Willie says, the torque is addictive, but you can use the torque just to sort of flow, and you don't really have to put any effort into riding the bike. So if you were touring, for example, you could just sort of flow around the bends. You can make a good turn of speed. You don't need to accelerate and it just sort of wafts you along in kind of like a really nice place. I think that the engine is the standout part of this bike, because we talked earlier about whether you would trade a Royal Enfield Interceptor or BSA Goldstar for one of these. I think probably the thing which differentiates it more than anything else is the 900cc twin there. It's pretty brutally fast when you open it up, and the initial temptation is to treat the bike a little bit like a muscle bike. I know it's all relative because somebody out there with a Rocket 3 or a Hayabusa or whatever, but for me it's kind of like a point and squirt. Get it round the bend, get it upright, woof, straight on the throttle, and it shoots forward into the distance. And that's kind of fun. Although it does encourage me to ride in a bit of a different way. I like the BSA because I just sit up there and I just sort of pop, 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 just trundling around, just taking in everything. Having all that torque with 80 Newton meters, it kind of encourages you to, you know, like literally like the V8 analogy we talked about earlier in the video. Get it straight, open the taps, boom, straight down the road. And it's fun, but it's not as relaxing. You don't take in as much stuff, and ultimately it's more dangerous and license losing behavior. So the performance is there. I wouldn't even need the 1200. I mean, good luck to everyone who's got the 1200, but we're talking about the 900 here. The quality is undoubtedly there as well, isn't it? Let's be fair. I mean, there's a few misses, like the indicators. This bracket here is a bit wobbly. The dash is, I mean, look, that's just shaking and moving as I touch it. That's a bit plasticky. But everything else, the important stuff, the engine, the exhaust, you've got a neat little radiator in there that's hidden. That's all pretty much done, isn't it? It's Triumph. The tank's lovely. I don't know how much the tank holds, but it's lovely. The fuel filler cap is lovely. So really, this is a bike that can do anything. You can pot around the town, as I did. It's got so much torque, you can just almost forget what gear you're in. You can filter through traffic. Obviously I had these on, so I decided to be a little bit careful. Didn't throw caution too much to the wind with those. And pretty much it's probably, to the right person, worth the money, because it is better than a BSA Goldstar or a Royal Enfield Interceptor. If we were to say empirically which is the better bike based on a number of factors, we would say yes, the quality is a little bit better, the engine performance is better, the paint's probably better, the brakes, everything is probably a little bit better on this bike compared to the other brands. However, it's what it's worth to you. I don't really personally see it as a bike I would own. I wouldn't go for this and trade the BSA in. The BSA feels like it feels like a classic motorcycle. This is smooth, refined, the engine wafts you along, everything, probably got balancer shafts and everything in there. Everything just smooth, refined, apart from the exhaust note, that's a bit raucous, but just does everything perfectly. BSA, they chucked a 25-year-old engine into a frame made of cast iron, rattles and shakes, and it kind of feels authentic, like it feels like the real deal. And even though this is the better bike, it's not the bike I'd choose to have. And having ridden it now, it'll be 250 kilometers by the end of the day. I wouldn't have this bike as my own bike. That's just a personal choice. I would keep the options open on the 1200, the T120 and the Speed Twin 1200, just because so many people have got them on YouTube and they're really positive about them, like Willie and Richard, I'm sure others as well. But I'll reserve judgment on that bike until I've ridden it. But this one, for me, I won't pay £9.5 grand for it, and they do hold their value well. So second-hand bargains aren't as easy to come by as the BSAs and the Interceptors are. And the final point to address is really the Triumph branding. Is that something that's contributing to the purchase price of this bike? Is it £9.5 grand because it's got Triumph badge there on the tank. And that could possibly be true. I mean, I don't know how to say this really, but Triumph is kind of, it's getting to that stage where it's so cool, it's not cool, if you know what I mean. There's that kind of perception of they try too hard. Hard to really kind of phrase it, but there are people out there who, as I said earlier in the video, don't really gel with Triumph. They, oh no, I wouldn't have a Triumph. So why is that? Is it because they're kind of getting to the point where they're so good, everything works, and it's a package that just delivers, that perhaps it isn't kind of that authentic anymore? Perhaps it's a more manufactured experience. But let me know what you think about that in the comments, because I'm kind of intrigued. I've seen both. I've seen people loving their Triumphs, and I've seen a few people say, oh, I wouldn't have a Triumph. So that's something I'm actually interested to explore. For me, I think the BSA, even with its downsides, is a better bike for me. And one of the reasons is the amount of attention you get on the BSA. BSA lights people up. You know, I had a bloke the other day, he was sat with his wife, what was his name? Hugh and Julia. So if you ever watch this, Hugh and Julia, I'm going to use you as an example. And I pulled in on the BSA, quick jump cut there because the car went past. I pulled in on the BSA, and this guy, talking of jumping, jumped out of his plastic white chair. He's outside of a cafe, picture the scene. And he just flew up and he went, oh, he couldn't believe it. And he was looking at the badge and he was asking it. He's like, oh, how's it got a Brembo brake? And we chatting for about 25 minutes in the end. And then he said, basically, it fooled me. I thought it was an original BSA. And for me, it's that like passion. It's an imperfect bike, the BSA, but it's got that emotional tug to it. I don't know if you parked this in a cafe, because it's sort of so good and polished, would it have that like emotive response? Getting a fly on my nose. Would it actually have that kind of like passion? Would it evoke the passion? I'm not sure. I mean, it does everything right, apart from perhaps it could do with spoke wheels, but it's got the green on the tank, it's got the single headlight, it's got the fork gators and everything on there, the exhaust fins on the engine, but it's just, for me, missing something. So I'm interested to know what you think about this. Is there another Triumph I should try? Perhaps I should try one of the kind of classic Bonnevilles, not the Speed Twin, see how I get on with that. But yeah, to summarise, hell of an impressive engine, feels a bit like a muscle bike, but ultimately I'm sticking with the BSA. Alright guys, well thanks a lot for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video. Hope you enjoyed.